The wind howled across the vast savanna, bending the tall grasses and stirring the dust that clung to the earth. Beneath a jagged cliff, where the rock face glowed red in the dying light of the sun, a small band of humans huddled around a fire, their faces, weathered by seasons of survival, were etched with the quiet intensity of those who lived at the mercy of the wild. This was the clan of the Stone Hand, a people who roamed the endless plains, hunting the great herds of aurochs and gathering roots from the stubborn soil. They were not so different from the other tribes scattered across the land, save for one among them, a young woman named Kael, whose mind burned with questions no one else dared to ask. Kael sat apart from the others, her dark eyes fixed on the fire's dance. In her lap rested a flat piece of slate, its surface scratched with lines and shapes she had made with a sharpened flint. She traced her fingers over the marks, her lips moving silently, as if whispering to the stone itself. The others in the clan paid her little mind. To them, Kael was strange, always staring at the sky or scratching at rocks when she should be sharpening spears or weaving baskets. But Kael's strangeness was not born of idleness. It was born of a spark, a restless need to capture the world in a way that outlasted the fleeting moments of life. The clan's elder, a stooped man named Torren, approached her now, his shadow falling long across the ground. His hair was white as the snow that capped the distant mountains, and his voice carried the weight of years spent guiding the Stone Hand through drought and storm. "Kael," he said, his tone a mixture of patience and warning. "The night grows cold. Join us by the fire. Your stones can wait." Kael looked up, her fingers tightening around the slate. "These are not just stones, Torren," she said softly. They hold something more than us." Torren's brow furrowed. He had seen Kael's scratches before, lines that curved like rivers, dots that clustered like stars. They were meaningless to him, the idle work of a restless hand. Yet there was something in her voice, a certainty that unsettled him. He crouched beside her, his joints creaking like dry wood. "What do you mean, child?" he asked, peering at the slate. "These marks, what do they hold?" Kael hesitated. How could she explain what she barely understood herself? For weeks, she had watched the world around her, the tracks of a deer in the mud, the patterns of birds in flight, and felt as though they were trying to speak. The world was full of signs, she thought, but they vanished too quickly. A footprint washed away in the rain. A story told around the fire faded with the dawn. What if there was a way to make marks that held those stories, those signs, forever? "I think," she said slowly, "these marks can speak, Torren, not like we do, but with meaning. I think I'm learning how to make the world stay still." Torren's eyes narrowed. The clan revered the spirits of the land, the ancestors who whispered in dreams. To speak was sacred, a gift from the spirits. To claim that marks on stone could hold such power was dangerous, perhaps even forbidden. "Be wary, Kael," he said, his voice low. "The spirits do not share their gifts lightly. If what you say is true, it is no small thing you chase." Kael nodded, though her heart raced. She knew the risks. The clan's shaman, a woman named Sura, had once cast out a man who claimed to see visions in the stars, fearing he had angered the ancestors. But Kael could not stop. The marks called to her, and she felt she was on the edge of something vast, like standing at the lip of a canyon with no end in sight. That night, as the clan slept beneath a sky heavy with stars, Kael lay awake, her slate clutched close. She thought of her mother, who had died when she was old enough to walk, leaving behind nothing but a woven cloak and a memory of a song. If only there had been a way to keep that song, to hold it like a stone. Kael's fingers moved over the slate, tracing a new mark, a wavy line, like the sound of her mother's voice. She whispered to it, "Sing," but the stone stayed silent. The next morning, the clan set out across the savanna, following the tracks of a herd of bison. The air was sharp with the scent of rain, and the ground trembled faintly with the distant thunder of hooves. Kael walked at the rear, her eyes scanning the ground, not for tracks but for stones. She had begun to carry a pouch of flints, each one chosen for its edge, and she stopped often to scratch at her slate. The others grumbled, but Torren silenced them with a raised hand. He had decided to let Kael's strangeness be, at least until the hunt was done. By midday, the clan reached a grove of twisted trees, their roots clawing at the earth like desperate fingers. The bison's tracks led here, but the herd was nowhere in sight. Torrin called for a rest, and while the hunters sharpened their spears, Kael wandered to the edge of the grove. There, half buried in the soil, she found a slab of stone unlike any she had seen. It was smooth, almost glassy, and large enough to bear more marks than her small slates could hold. Her heart quickened as she knelt beside it, brushing away the dirt. As she worked, her flint uncovered something strange, faint lines etched into the stone. Not random, but deliberate. Like her own, they formed shapes, circles, zigzags, a cluster of dots that might have been a herd. Kael's breath caught. These were marks, like hers, but older, far older. Someone, long gone, had scratched this stone with purpose. She called to Torrin, her voice sharp with urgency. The elder approached, followed by Sura, the shaman, whose eyes glinted with suspicion. When they saw the slab, Torrin's face paled, while Sura's lips pressed tight. "These are old," Torrin said, his fingers hovering over the marks, older than the stone hand, perhaps older than any clan. Sura knelt, the beads in her hair clicking softly. She traced a protective charm in the air, muttering words to appease the spirits. "These are not ours," she said darkly. "The ancestors did not mark stones. This is the work of something else." Kael's heart sank. She had hoped for wonder, not fear, but Sura. She said, "What if the ancestors did make these? What if they were like us, trying to hold the world?" Sura's eyes snapped to Kael. "Do not speak of what you do not know, child," she said. "The ancestors speak through me, and they do not speak in stone." Torrin placed a hand on Sura's shoulder, his voice calm but firm. "Let us not judge too soon. Sura, Kael's marks are her own, but this stone may hold wisdom we do not yet see." The clan debated long into the night. Some, like the hunter Vren, scoffed at the stone, calling it a curiosity best left behind. Others whispered of spirits, fearful of what such marks might summon. But Kael's discovery had shifted something in the clan. They agreed to carry the slab with them, though it slowed their pace, and Torrin tasked Kael with studying it alongside her own slates. Over the days that followed, Kael pored over the ancient slab, comparing its marks to her own. She noticed patterns, shapes that appeared again and again, as if they stood for something constant, like the sun or the wind. One night, as the clan camped by a shallow river, she scratched a circle on her slate, mimicking one from the slab. And beside it, she drew a line. Like a spear, she stared at them, her mind racing. The circle could be the sun. The line could be the hunt. Together, could they mean a day of hunting? She showed the marks to Torrin, her voice trembling with excitement. I think these mean something together," she said, "like how we tell stories, but on stone." Torrin studied the slate, his eyes narrowing. He was silent for a long time, then said, "Show me more." Kael's heart leapt. She began to draw more pairs of marks, each one building on the last, the sun and the river, the spear and the bison. She whispered names for them, names that felt like they fit the shapes. The clan watched, some with curiosity, others with unease. Sura remained silent, her gaze fixed on Kael like a hawk watching a mouse. As the clan moved deeper into the savannah, following the bison's trail, Kael's marks grew more complex. She began to see them not as mere shapes, but as a way to hold time itself. A hunt could be marked, a storm recorded, a life remembered. The slab she carried became her guide, its ancient marks a whisper from the deep past. She wondered, who had made these signs? Had they, too, felt this need to capture the world? And why had their knowledge been lost? One evening, as the clan camped beneath a sky streaked with fire, Kael sat with her slate and the ancient stone. Her fingers tracing a new mark, she whispered a word, "Stay," and felt for the first time that the stone might listen. The savannah stretched endless under a sky bruised with clouds, the air heavy with the promise of rain. The Stonehand clan moved slowly now, burdened by the ancient slab Kael had found in the grove. 2 hunters, Vren and his brother Ler, bore it on a makeshift litter of branches, their faces taut with irritation. The slab's weight was not just physical, it carried a tension that rippled through the clan. Whispers followed Kael as she walked, her pouch of flints clinking softly, her eyes fixed on the ground, as if searching for answers in the dust. Kael felt the weight of those whispers, since showing Torin her paired marks, the sun and the spear, the river and the bison. She had sensed a shift in the clan. Some, like the young hunter Mira, watched her with curiosity, lingering near when she scratched at her slate. Others, led by Sura's stern gaze, muttered of spirits angered by Kael's meddling. The shaman had not spoken against her openly, but her silence was louder than words. Kael knew she treaded a fragile path, one where a misstep could brand her an outcast. Yet she could not stop. The marks consumed her, each night, by the flicker of the fire. She studied the ancient slab, its etched lines like a map to a forgotten world. She began to see repetitions, 3 dots in a triangle, a wavy line crossed by a slash that appeared across its surface. These were not random, she was sure. They held meaning, like the calls of birds or the tracks of prey. Her own slates filled with copies of these shapes. Alongside her new marks, she named them in her mind: sun for the circle, hunt for the spear line, water for the wavy curve. The names felt right, like stones settling into a riverbed. One morning, as the clan crossed a shallow valley dotted with acacia trees, Mira approached Kael, the young hunter, barely older than Kael, carried a spear but moved with a lightness that spoke of confidence. Her dark hair was braided with feathers, a mark of her first kill. "Kael," Mira said, glancing over her shoulder to ensure no one listened. "Show me your marks again, the ones you showed Torin." Kael hesitated. Sharing her work felt like baring her soul, and Mira's boldness could draw attention she didn't need. But there was no malice in Mira's eyes, only a spark of interest. Kael knelt, pulling a slate from her pouch. She scratched 2 marks, a circle and a spear line, beside it. "This," she said, pointing to the circle, "is the sun. This," she tapped the spear, "is the hunt. Together, they mean a day we hunt under the sun." Mira's brow furrowed, her fingers tracing the marks. "How do you know this? Did the spirits tell you?" Kael shook her head. "Not the spirits, the world. I see patterns, tracks, stars, the way the river moves. These marks, they're like that. They hold what we see, so it doesn't vanish." Mira was silent, her eyes fixed on the slate. Then she grinned, a flash of teeth in the sunlight. "Teach me," she said. "I want to make marks too." Kael's heart leapt, but caution tempered her joy. "It's not simple," she warned, "and Sura watches. If she thinks we mock the spirits." Mira waved a hand. "Sura fears what she doesn't know. Torin listens to you. Keep him close, and Sura won't act." Kael nodded. Though unease lingered, she agreed to teach Mira in secret, when the clan rested and the others were distracted. That evening, as the hunters prepared for a bison chase, Kael and Mira sat behind a boulder, their slates hidden in the shadows. Kael showed Mira the basic shapes, guiding her hand to scratch a circle, then a wavy line. Mira's marks were clumsy, but her laughter was bright, echoing softly in the dusk. As days passed, the clan drew closer to the bison herd. The air grew thick with their scent, and the ground was scarred with hoof prints. Torin led the hunters in a crescent formation, their spears ready, while the rest of the clan followed at a distance. Kael, tasked with carrying water skins, used the journey to study her marks. She began to combine them in new ways. 3 dots for a herd, a slash for danger. On the ancient slab, she found a similar cluster, 3 dots beside a jagged line. Could it mean a herd in peril? She scratched the same on her slate, whispering, "Herd, danger," as if to seal the meaning. The hunt came at dawn, under a sky streaked with gold. The bison, a sea of shaggy hides, thundered across the plain, their hooves shaking the earth. Vren led the charge, his spear piercing the flank of a young bull. The clan's shouts mingled with the bison's bellows, a chaos of life and death. Kael watched from a rise, her slate in hand, she scratched marks as the hunt unfolded. A spear for Vren's strike, 3 dots for the herd's flight, a slash for the bull's fall. Her hand moved swiftly, as if the marks could capture the moment before it faded. When the hunt ended, the clan gathered around the fallen bull, their faces flushed with triumph. Torrin offered thanks to the spirits, while Sura burned herbs, their smoke curling skyward. Kael approached Torrin, her slate trembling in her hands. "Elder," she said, "I marked the hunt. Look." Torrin took the slate, his eyes tracing the shapes, the spear, the dots, the slash. He frowned, not with anger, but with thought. "You say these tell of today?" Kael nodded. "The spear is Vren's kill. The dots are the herd. The slash is the bull's death. It's the hunt, held here." Torrin handed the slate back, his face unreadable. "Keep this to yourself for now," he said. "Show me more when we camp." Kael obeyed. Though her mind raced, Torrin's caution was not rejection, but it was not acceptance either. She needed more marks, more meaning, to prove her work was no folly. That night, as the clan feasted on bison meat, Kael sat with Mira, teaching her new shapes. Mira's slate bore a shaky circle and a spear, her pride evident in her grin, but their lesson was cut short when Sura appeared, her shadow falling over them. The shaman's eyes glinted in the firelight, her voice sharp as flint. "What do you do here, Kael?" she demanded, her gaze flicking to the slates. "Do you mock the spirits with your scratches?" Kael's throat tightened. Mira froze, her slate half hidden. Kael stood, clutching her own slate, her voice steady despite her fear. "These are not mockery, Sura. They're a way to honor the world, to keep what we know." Sura's lips curled. "The world speaks through me, child, not through stones. You tread dangerously close to blasphemy." Before Kael could respond, Torrin approached, his presence calming the air. "Enough, Sura," he said. "Kael's marks harm no one. Let her work, and we will see what comes." Sura's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more. She turned and vanished into the shadows, her beads clicking like a warning. Kael exhaled, her hands trembling. Torrin placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low. "Be careful, Kael," he said. "Sura guards the old ways. Prove your marks have worth, or she will sway the clan against you." Kael nodded, her resolve hardening. She would prove it, not just to Torrin, but to herself. The marks were more than scratches. They were a language, a way to bind the fleeting world to something lasting. The clan moved on, following the bison's trail toward a distant river. Kael's work deepened. She began to see her marks as a web, each shape linked to others, forming stories. She scratched a sequence: sun, spear, 3 dots, slash. It told of the hunt, but it could tell more. A warning, a memory. On the ancient slab, she found a similar sequence, its shapes weathered but clear. Whoever had made it had known this too, that marks could hold time. One evening, as the clan camped by a lagoon, Kael sat with the slab, her fingers tracing its lines. She whispered to it, "Who were you?" The stone did not answer, but its marks seemed to hum with life. She scratched a new shape on her slate, a spiral, like the wind's dance. She named it Spirit, for the ancestors she felt watching. Mira joined her, her own slate filled with clumsy marks. "Kael," she said, "what if we show the others? Not just Torrin, if they see what we see." Kael shook her head. "Not yet. Sura waits for a mistake. We need more. Marks that speak so clearly no one can deny them." Mira sighed but nodded. Together, they scratched at their slates, their marks a quiet rebellion against the clan's doubts. The lagoon reflected the stars, and Kael felt, for a moment, that the world was listening. The river gleamed like a vein of silver under the midday sun, its banks thick with reeds that swayed in the warm breeze. The Stonehand clan had followed the bison's trail to this place, a wide floodplain where the earth was soft and the air hummed with life. They set camp near the river's bend, their shelters of hide and bone rising like small hills against the horizon. The hunt had been bountiful, and the clan's spirits were high, their laughter mingling with the crackle of fires and the chatter of children. Yet beneath this fleeting joy, a shadow grew, one cast by Kael's relentless pursuit of her marks. Kael sat by the river's edge, her slate in her lap, her fingers blackened from hours of scratching with charred sticks. She had begun to use ash and ochre to make her marks stand out, their lines bold against the stone's grey face. The ancient slab rested beside her, its weathered etchings a constant companion. She studied it daily, tracing its shapes until her fingers ached, searching for the logic that bound them. The slab's makers, she was certain, had known what she was only beginning to grasp, that marks could weave a story, a warning, a truth that outlived the teller. Her work had grown more intricate. She no longer scratched single shapes but sequences, chains of marks that told of the clan's journey, a circle for the sun, 3 dots for the herd, a wavy line for the river. They flowed together like a song. She had shown these to Torren, who listened with a furrowed brow but offered no judgment. His silence was both a shield and a challenge, urging her to refine her craft. Without promising acceptance, Mira too had progressed, her slates filled with simple marks she practiced in stolen moments. But Kael knew their secrecy could not last. The clan's eyes were turning toward her, and Sura's patience was thinning like ice in spring. That morning, as the clan prepared to cross the river in pursuit of the bison, Kael noticed a change. The hunters, led by Vren, spoke in hushed tones, their glances darting toward her. Sura stood among them, her beads glinting as she gestured sharply. Kael's stomach tightened. She clutched her slate, her fingers tracing a spiral, the mark she called spirit, as if it could steady her. Mira approached, her face pale. "They're talking about you," Mira whispered, crouching beside Kael. "Vren says your marks slow us down. Sura says they're a curse, that the spirits are angry because we carry that slab." Kael's heart pounded. "What does Torren say?" Mira shrugged. "He's quiet, but he won't defy Sura if the others turn against you. You need to show them, Kael. Show them your marks mean something." Kael nodded, though fear coiled in her chest. She had dreamed of sharing her work, but not like this. Not under a cloud of suspicion. She needed something undeniable, a mark that spoke so clearly it could silence even Sura. As the clan gathered to ford the river, she slipped away, seeking solitude by a cluster of rocks. There, she studied the ancient slab, her eyes lingering on a sequence she had not yet deciphered. A circle crossed by a slash, followed by 3 wavy lines. It felt urgent, like a warning. She scratched it onto her slate, whispering, "What do you mean?" The river crossing was treacherous. The current was stronger than it appeared, tugging at the clan's legs as they waded through. Kael, carrying her pouch and the slab, struggled to keep her footing. Halfway across, a cry rang out. A child, Leah's daughter, Tessa, had slipped. Her small body swept downstream. The clan froze, then surged into action. Vren and Leah plunging after her. Kael watched, her heart in her throat, as they pulled Tessa from the water, shivering but alive. The clan gathered on the far bank, their relief palpable, but Sura's voice cut through the murmurs. "This is a sign," she declared, her eyes fixed on Kael. "The spirits warn us. That slab, those marks, they bring misfortune. We must cast them away." Murmurs rippled through the clan. Vren nodded, his spear in hand. "The slab slows us. The girl's marks mean nothing. We should leave them and move on." Kael stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "The marks are not a curse. They can help us. They can warn us, keep us safe." Sura's lips curled. "Warn us? You claim to speak for the spirits, child?" "No," Kael said, clutching her slate. "I speak for the world. The marks hold what we see, what we know. They can save us from forgetting." Torren raised a hand, silencing the clan. "Speak, Kael," he said. "Show us what you mean." Kael's hands shook as she knelt, laying her slate and the ancient slab before the clan. She pointed to the sequence she had copied that morning. The circle with a slash, the 3 wavy lines. "This is from the slab," she said. I think it means danger by water, a flood maybe, or a strong current. If we had known, we could have been more careful with Tessa." The clan was silent, their eyes flicking between Kael and the slab. Vren scoffed. "You see what you want to see, girl. Those marks mean nothing. But Mira stepped forward, her voice steady. I've seen Kael's marks. She's taught me some. They're not random. They tell of the hunt, the river, the sun. If she says this means danger, I believe her. Sura's eyes narrowed, but before she could speak, Torin knelt beside the slab, his fingers tracing the sequence. This mark, he said, pointing to the circle with a slash, is like the sun when it's hidden by clouds. And these lines, they could be water, rushing fast. Kael, how did you know? Kael swallowed. I didn't, not for sure. But the slab, it's old, older than us. Someone made these marks to mean something. I'm trying to learn their language. Torin stood, his face grave. We will keep the slab, he said, and Kael will continue her work, but she must prove her marks can aid us, or we will heed Sura's warning. The clan dispersed, some muttering, others silent. Sura's gaze lingered on Kael, sharp as a blade, before she turned away. Kael exhaled, her relief tinged with fear. She had won a reprieve, but the clan's trust was fragile. She needed more than warnings. She needed marks that bound them together, that gave them strength. That night, as the clan camped under a sky heavy with stars, Kael sat with Mira, their slates glowing in the firelight. She began to teach Mira new sequences, combining marks to tell of the river crossing, the wavy lines for water, a small circle for Tessa, a slash for danger. Mira's marks were steadier now, her focus fierce. Kael felt a flicker of hope. If Mira could learn, others might too. The next day, the clan moved deeper into the floodplain, the bison's tracks leading toward a distant ridge. Kael noticed the ground growing softer, the air thick with moisture. She studied the ancient slab, searching for clues. She found another sequence. 3 dots, a wavy line, a jagged mark like lightning. Her heart quickened. Could it mean a storm? A flood? She showed it to Torin, her voice urgent. Elder, she said, this might warn of rain, heavy rain. We should camp on high ground. Torin studied the slab, then looked to the sky, where clouds gathered like a herd. We will do as you say, he said, but if no storm comes, Kael, the clan will doubt you. Kael nodded, her stomach knotting. As the clan climbed to the ridge, she scratched the sequence on her slate, whispering, please be true. That night, the sky broke open, rain lashing the earth, the river swelling below. The clan's shelters held firm on the ridge, their fires safe. When dawn came, the floodplain was a sea of mud. The bison's tracks erased. The clan gathered, their faces awed. Mira spoke first, her voice ringing. Kael's mark saved us. She read the slab, and it spoke true. Torin nodded, his eyes on Kael. You have proven your worth for now. Teach us more, Kael. Let the marks bind us. Sura said nothing, but her silence was heavy. Kael knew the shaman would not yield easily. She knelt by the slab, her fingers tracing the jagged mark. Thank you, she whispered. To the stone, to the ancestors, to the world. Her marks were no longer hers alone. They were the clan's, a fragile thread weaving them to the past and the future. The ridge where the Stonehand clan camped overlooked a floodplain, now transformed into a glistening marsh. The river's wrath still evident in the churned earth below. The storm had passed, leaving a sky clear and sharp, as if the world had been scrubbed clean. The clan buzzed with a cautious awe, their eyes often drifting to Kael, who sat cross-legged by the ancient slab, her slate cradled in her lap. Her warning, drawn from the slab's cryptic marks, had spared them the flood's grasp, and for the first time, her work was not merely tolerated, but sought. Yet Kael felt no ease. The clan's trust was a brittle thing, and Sura's silence loomed like a gathering storm. Torin had tasked Kael with teaching the clan her marks, a charge that both thrilled and daunted her. She began with the simplest shapes, the circle for sun, the wavy line for water, the 3 dots for herd. Mira, her first student, stood beside her, proudly showing her own slate to the curious. A small group gathered. Leah, whose daughter Tessa had been saved from the river. Erin, a weaver with quick fingers, and 2 children, Tessa and her brother Kael, who watched with wide eyes, Vren and his followers kept their distance, their spears in hand, but even they glanced over, their skepticism tinged with curiosity. Kael knelt, scratching a sequence on her slate, a circle, 3 dots, a spear line. "This tells of a hunt," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of their gazes. "The sun shines, the herd moves, the spear strikes. It's a story, held here, so we don't forget." Erin leaned closer, her brow furrowed. "How do you know what to mark? The world is vast. Can you hold it all?" Kael hesitated. Erin's question cut to the heart of her struggle. The world was indeed vast, its patterns endless. She could not capture every bird's flight or every gust of wind, but she was learning to choose what mattered. "Not all," she admitted, "but what we need: hunts, dangers, places we've been. The marks keep what keeps us alive." Teaser, clutching a small stone, piped up, "Can I make a mark for me?" Kael smiled, her tension easing. "Yes, Teaser, let's make one for you." She guided the girl's hand, scratching a small circle with a dot in its center. "This is Teaser, bright like a star." The children laughed, and even Leah's stern face softened. Kael felt a spark of hope. If the young learned her marks, they might carry them forward. Beyond her own life, she taught them more that day. Simple shapes they could scratch with sticks or stones. Mira helped, her confidence growing as she corrected Cal's wobbly lines. By dusk, the group had filled several slates, their marks crude but earnest. But not all welcomed Kael's teachings. Sora watched from the edge of the camp, her arms crossed, her beads glinting in the firelight. She spoke little, but her presence was a warning. Vren, emboldened by her silence, grew bolder that evening. As the clan shared a meal of roasted bison, he stood, his voice carrying over the fire. "This marking is a distraction," he said, gesturing at Kael's slates. "We are hunters, not stone scratchers. The bison move, and we must follow. This slab, these marks, they slow us, weaken us." Murmurs rippled through the clan. Some nodded, their faces tight with worry. Others looked to Kael, waiting for her response. She stood, her heart racing, clutching the ancient slab's edge as if it could anchor her. "The marks don't weaken us," she said. "They make us stronger. They warn of floods, tell of hunts. They keep what we learn, so we don't lose it when the elders pass or the young forget." Vren sneered. "You speak of strength, but you carry stones while we carry spears. Prove your marks can feed us, or leave them behind." Torin raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "Enough. Vren, Kael's marks saved us from the flood. She will teach us more, and we will judge their worth. The slab stays." Vren's jaw tightened, but he sat, his eyes burning. Sura's gaze met Kael's, cold and unyielding. Kael knew the shaman would not challenge Torin openly, but her influence was deep, rooted in the clan's fear of the spirits. Kael needed to act swiftly, to show the mark's value before doubt took hold. The next morning, the clan set out across the ridge, tracking the bison toward a distant valley. Kael walked with Mira, their slates tucked in pouches, the ancient slab borne by Leah and Erin now, a sign of their growing trust. Kael studied the landscape, searching for patterns to mark. She noticed the ridge's shape, a long curve like a snake, and scratched it on her slate, adding a circle for their camp. If they lost their way, this could guide them back. As they descended into the valley, the air grew thick, the ground dotted with bones bleached by time. Kael's eyes caught on a pile of stones, their arrangement unnatural, deliberate. She approached, her breath catching. The stones formed a circle, and within it, etched on a flat rock, were marks. Faint but clear, like those on the ancient slab, a zigzag for lightning, 3 dots for a herd, a slash for danger. Her heart raced. These were not her marks, nor the slab's, but they spoke the same language. She called to Torin, who knelt beside her, his fingers tracing the rock. "This is old," he said, his voice low. "Like the slab, others marked this place, long ago." Mira's eyes widened. "Others? You mean people like us, but before?" Kael nodded. They knew the marks too. They left this here, maybe to warn others. Lightning, a herd, danger. It could mean a storm that scatters the hunt. Torrin's face grew thoughtful. If this is true, Kael, your marks are not new, they are remembered. The words struck Kael like a flint spark. Remembered. Had the marks lived in the world before, only to be lost? Were she and the slabs makers tied by some thread across time? She scratched the rock's marks onto her slate, her hand trembling with purpose. These stones were proof that her work was not hers alone, but part of something greater. The clan pressed on, but the valley grew uneasy. The bison's tracks were scattered, as if the herd had fled. The air crackled, the sky darkening with clouds. Kael's marks from the stone circle haunted her. She showed them to Torrin, her voice urgent. Elder, we should find shelter. The marks warn of lightning, of danger. Torrin studied the sky, then nodded. We'll climb to the caves above the valley. Lead us, Kael. Kael's chest tightened. The clan's safety rested on her now. She guided them upward, her eyes scanning for the caves she had marked on her slate. A curve for the ridge, a triangle for the cave's mouth. As they climbed, thunder rumbled and lightning split the sky. The clan reached the caves just as rain began to fall, their breaths heavy with relief. Inside, as the storm raged, Kael gathered the learners, Leah, Erin, Teysa, Kael, and Mira. She showed them the stone circle's marks, explaining their meaning. These were left for us, she said. To keep us safe, we can do the same for those who come after. Erin's fingers traced the slate. Can we mark our names, like Teysa's? Kael nodded, guiding them to scratch simple shapes. A line for Leah, a curve for Erin, a star for Kael. Each mark felt like a vow, binding them to the world. Even Leah, gruff and skeptical, scratched his line with care, his face softening as Teysa clapped. But the storm brought more than rain. That night, as the clan huddled in the cave, Vren approached Sura. Their voices low but sharp, Kael overheard fragments, marks, spirits, danger. She knew they plotted, but she could not act without proof. She clutched her slate, scratching a new mark, a cross for trust. She needed the clan's trust, now more than ever. By dawn, the storm had passed, the valley glistening below. The clan emerged, their eyes on Kael. She showed Torrin her slate, the ridge and cave marked clearly. This can guide us back, she said. The marks remember the way. Torrin nodded, a rare smile breaking his face. Teach more. Kael, let the marks guide us all. As the clan descended, Kael felt the ancient slab's weight, not as a burden but as a promise. The marks were spreading, taking root, but Sura's shadow lingered, and Kael knew the hardest trials lay ahead. The valley stretched before the Stonehand clan, its grasses shimmering with the remnants of the storm, the air sharp with the scent of wet earth. The caves had sheltered them, and Kael's marks, etched on her slate with the ridge's curve and the cave's triangular mouth, had guided their descent back to the valley floor. The clan moved with purpose now, their eyes scanning for the bison's tracks, but their glances often fell on Kael, who walked with the ancient slab strapped to her back, its weight a constant reminder of her burden and her promise. Her marks had saved them twice, first from the flood, then from the storm, and whispers of her work spread like ripples in a still pool. Kael felt the shift in the clan's mood, a fragile trust taking root. The learners, Leah, Erin, Teysa, Kael, and Mira, carried slates of their own, their fingers smudged with ochre as they practiced her shapes. Even Torrin, ever cautious, had begun to ask for marks to guide the hunt, sketching a crude spear line on a stone to mark a path. But Kael knew trust was not victory. Sura's silence had grown heavier, her eyes like embers waiting for kindling. Vren, too, rallied his hunters, their grumbles a low hum beneath the clan's daily rhythm. Kael needed to solidify her mark's place in the clan before their doubts became a blade. The valley led to a forested slope, where the bison's tracks reappeared, deep and fresh in the mud. The clan set camp beneath towering pines, their branches heavy with dew. Kael gathered her learners by the fire, their slates spread before them. She had begun to teach them sequences that told stories beyond the hunt. A circle with a dot for home, a spiral for spirit, a cluster of lines for clan. She showed them how to combine these, scratching a tale of their journey, home to water, to danger to cave. The children, Teaser and Kael, traced the marks with glee, while Leah and Erin nodded, their faces lit with understanding. "You're making a map," Erin said, her voice soft with wonder. "Not just of places, but of us." Kael smiled, her heart lifting. "Yes, the marks hold us who we are, where we go. They can speak when we cannot." Mira, her slate filled with careful shapes, added, "What if we marked the forest, the bison's path, the good trees for spears?" Kael's eyes brightened. Let's mark this camp, the forest, the herd." She scratched a new sequence, a triangle for forest, 3 dots for herd, a line for path. The learners copied her, their slates a patchwork of stories. For the first time, Kael felt they were not just following, but creating, weaving the world into stone. But the forest brought new tensions. The bison were elusive, their tracks leading deeper into the thickets, where shadows clung like mist. The hunters grew restless, their spears idle. Vren's voice rose at the fire, sharp and accusing. "We chase shadows while Kael scratches stones." The spirits gave us spears, not slates. We should hunt, not play with marks. Leah, now a learner, stood, his voice steady. "Kael's marks kept my Taysa safe. They led us to the caves. They're not play, they're strength." Vren's eyes narrowed. "Strength? We starve while she dreams. The spirits will not feed us with stones." Torrin intervened, his presence calming the fire's heat. "The marks have proven their worth. Vren, Kael will mark the forest's paths. If they guide the hunt, we will see their value." Kael nodded, though her stomach knotted. The forest was vast, its paths tangled. She spent the next day with Mira and Leah, marking trees with ochre and scratching slates to map the bison's trails. She used her pathline, adding arrows to show direction, and herd dots to mark sightings. The work was slow, the forest resisting her efforts to tame it with marks. Yet by dusk, her slate held a crude map, the camp's home circle, the forest's triangle, and a trail of path lines leading to a cluster of herd dots. She showed it to Torrin, her voice steady. "This is the forest," she said, pointing to the triangle. "This is where we saw the herd. If we follow these lines, we'll find them." Torrin studied the slate, then called the hunters. "We hunt at dawn," he said. "Kael's marks will guide us." The clan murmured, some with hope, others with doubt. Sura stood at the fire's edge, her face unreadable. Kael felt her gaze like a weight, but she held her slate high, determined to prove her mark's worth. Dawn broke cold, the forest cloaked in mist. Kael led the hunters, her slate in hand. Mira and Leah at her side. They followed the path lines, their steps quiet on the pine-strewn ground. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation. Then, through the trees, the herd appeared, a mass of shaggy hides, their breaths steaming in the chill. Vren's spear struck first, felling a bull, and the hunters' cries echoed as the herd scattered. The hunt was swift, the clan's bellies soon to be filled. Back at camp, the clan celebrated, their fires roaring. Kael's map had worked, guiding them true. Even Vren, his face flushed from the kill, offered a grudging nod. Torrin raised a hand, his voice carrying, "Kael's marks led us to the herd. They are part of us now." The learners cheered, their slates raised like trophies. Taysa scratched her star mark on a stone, giggling as Kael added his own. But Sura's voice cut through the joy, sharp as a flint's edge. "The spirits guide the hunt," she said, stepping into the firelight. "Not stones. Kael claims their power. But she is no shaman. Her marks defy the ancestors." The clan fell silent, the air heavy. Kael stood, her slate trembling in her hands. "I don't defy the spirits," she said. "I honor them. The marks hold their wisdom, the wisdom of those who came before, the slab, the stones in the valley. They're their voices, speaking to us." Sura's eyes blazed. "You speak for the ancestors? That is my role, child. You risk their wrath." Torrin stepped between them, his voice firm. "Enough. The marks have fed us. They will stay. But Sura speaks true. Kael, You must honour the spirits in your work, or the clan will fear it. Kael nodded, her throat tight. She knew Sora's words were a challenge, a line drawn in the earth. That night, she sat with the ancient slab, her fingers tracing its marks. She scratched a new sequence on her slate, a spiral for spirit, a circle for sun, a cross for trust. She whispered a prayer, not to defy Sura, but to weave the spirits into her work. If the clan saw the marks as sacred, they might embrace them fully. The next day, Kael proposed a new task, marking the clan's history. She gathered the learners, asking them to tell stories of their ancestors, tales of great hunts, lost kin, sacred places. She scratched these into slates, a spear for a legendary hunter, a star for a child who spoke to the sky. The learners added their own, their marks weaving a tapestry of the Stonehand's past. Even Torrin joined, scratching a line for his father, a leader who had faced a great bear. But Sura's influence lingered. One night, as Kael slept, she woke to a rustle. Her pouch of slates was gone, the ancient slab untouched, but smeared with ash, as if marked in anger. She searched the camp, finding her slates shattered near Vren's shelter, their marks erased. Her heart sank, but she did not accuse. Instead, she gathered the fragments, vowing to remake them. Mira, furious, urged her to confront Vren, but Kael shook her head. "We'll make more," she said, "stronger. They can't break what we carry in our minds." The clan moved deeper into the forest, the bison's tracks leading to a clearing where a great tree stood, its roots like rivers in the earth. Kael saw it as a sign. She scratched its shape, a trunk with branching lines, onto a new slate, naming it Heart. She showed it to the clan, her voice steady. "This is us," she said, "our roots, our strength. The marks hold it all." The clan listened, their eyes on the slate. Even Sura watched, her silence a blade held in reserve. Kael knew the fight was not over, but her marks were growing, spreading like raw roots through the clan's heart. The great tree loomed over the clearing, its gnarled branches clawing at the sky, its roots weaving through the earth like the veins of the world. The Stonehand clan had made camp here, their shelters clustered beneath the tree's shadow, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp soil. The bison's tracks had led them to this place, a natural crossroads where the forest opened to a grassy plain beyond. The clan's fires burned bright, their voices rising in songs of past hunts. But beneath the surface, a current of unease flowed. Kael's marks had taken root, but so had the seeds of division, sown by Sura's warnings and Vren's defiance. Kael sat by the great tree, her new slate in her lap, its surface already etched with the heart mark. A trunk with branching lines that stood for the clan's unity. The loss of her old slates, shattered near Vren's shelter, had stung, but she had rebuilt her work with fierce determination. Her learners, Mira, Lear, Erin, Tisa, and Kael, carried their own slates, their marks growing bolder with each day. Even Torrin now scratched simple shapes, his fingers tracing a pathline to mark the clan's route through the forest. The marks were no longer Kael's alone. They were becoming the clan's language, a way to hold their stories against the relentless march of time. Yet Kael felt the weight of Sura's gaze, sharper now than ever. The shaman had not spoken against her since the hunt, but her silence was a storm gathering strength. Vren, too, grew bolder, his hunters whispering of spirits angered by Kael's work. The ancient slab, still borne by Lear and Erin, was a constant point of contention. Some saw it as a relic of wisdom, others, swayed by Sura, called it a curse. Kael knew she needed to bridge this divide, to make the marks undeniable, not just as tools, but as a sacred act. She began by teaching the learners to mark the great tree's clearing. They scratched slates with its heart shape, adding herd dots for the bison sighted nearby and path lines for the trails leading to the plain. Kael showed them how to combine these into a story. Clan at heart, following path to herd, Tisa, her small hands smudged with ochre, giggled as she added her star mark, claiming the tree as hers. Even Lear, gruff but loyal, scratched a spear for the hunt to come, his pride evident in the careful lines. One evening, as the clan gathered around the fire, Kael proposed a new idea. "Let's mark the tree itself," she said, her voice carrying over the crackle of flames. "Not just on slates, but on its bark, a story of us, for others who come after." The clan murmured, some intrigued, others wary. Erin, her weaver's hands deft with a flint, nodded. "Like the stones in the valley, a mark that stays." Torrin's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. "What would we mark, Kael?" Kael held up her slate, showing the heart with clan lines radiating outward. "This, us, here, now, our strength, our journey. The spirits will see it, and so will the future." The word spirits was deliberate, a nod to Sura's domain. Kael had begun to weave the shaman's language into her work, hoping to ease the clan's fears. But Sura stood, her beads clinking, her voice cold. "You claim the spirit's favour. Kael, the tree is sacred. To mark it is to challenge the ancestors." Kael's heart raced, but she met Sura's gaze, not to challenge, but to honour. "The marks are their gift, left on the slab, the stones. We carry their wisdom forward." Sura's lips pressed thin, but Torrin raised a hand. "Let Kael mark the tree," he said. "If the spirits disapprove, we will know." The clan watched as Kael approached the great tree, her flint in hand. She scratched the heart mark onto its bark, her hand steady despite the eyes upon her. Mira and the learners joined, adding clan lines and star dots, their marks a tapestry of the stone hand's presence. The tree seemed to hum beneath their hands, as if accepting their offering. Kael whispered a prayer, not to defy Sura, but to align her work with the clan's beliefs. The next day, the hunters set out, guided by Kael's slate map. The bison were close, their bellows echoing across the plain. The hunt was swift. 2 cows felled by Vren and Lear's spears. The clan rejoiced, their bellies filled. But Kael noticed Vren's scowl as he passed the marked tree. That night, she overheard him speaking to Sura by the fire, their voices low but sharp. The girl's marks spread like fire. Vren said, "If we don't act, they'll burn us all." Sura's reply was softer, but chilling. "The spirits will act, Vren, be patient." Kael's stomach knotted. She knew Sura's patience was a strategy, waiting for a misstep to turn the clan against her. She redoubled her efforts, teaching the learners to mark not just places, but events. They scratched the hunt's story: spear, herd, heart. Erin suggested marking the seasons, a circle split into arcs for sun and snow. Kael embraced the idea, scratching a cycle mark, feeling the world's rhythms take shape on her slate. But the forest grew restless. Wolves howled at night, their eyes glinting beyond the fires. The bison's tracks scattered, as if the herd sensed danger. One morning, Cal ran to Kael, his face pale. "The tree's mark, it's gone." Kael rushed to the great tree, her heart sinking. The heart and clan marks had been scraped away, the bark scarred with slashes. Ash was smeared across the trunk, a deliberate insult. The clan gathered, their voices rising in fear. Sura stepped forward, her voice ringing. "The spirits have spoken. The marks offend them. We must cast them out, or worse will come." Mira's eyes blazed. "This isn't the spirits. Someone did this. Someone who fears Kael's work." Vren's hand tightened on his spear. "You accuse us, girl. Prove it, or hold your tongue." Torrin's face was grave. "Kael, what do you say?" Kael knelt by the tree, her fingers tracing the scars. She saw no proof, only intent. "I don't know who did this," she said, her voice steady. "But the marks are not the enemy. They hold us together. I'll mark the tree again, if you allow." Torrin nodded. "Do it. But Sura is right. We must heed the spirits. Make an offering with your marks." Kael agreed, her mind racing. She gathered the learners, and together they remade the heart mark, larger this time, adding spirit spirals to honour the ancestors. Kael burned herbs, mimicking Sura's rituals, and scratched a trust cross on a stone, offering it to the fire. The clan watched, some mollified, others sceptical. Sura's silence was deafening, her eyes fixed on the flames. That night, Kael sat with the ancient slab, its marks glowing in the firelight. She found a sequence she hadn't noticed before. A danger slash, a herd cluster, a spirit spiral. It felt urgent, like a warning. She showed it to Torrin, her voice low. Elder, this may mean trouble. Wolves, maybe, or something worse. We should guard the camp. Torrin studied the slab, then called the hunters to double the watch. Kael scratched the sequence on her slate, whispering, "Protect us." As the clan slept, she stayed awake, her flint in hand, ready to mark whatever came. At dawn, a cry shattered the silence. Wolves had attacked. Slipping past the outer guards, the clan fought them off. But a hunter, Erin's brother Tarn, was wounded, his arm torn. The wolves fled, but the camp was shaken. Sura seized the moment, her voice rising. "The spirits punish us. Kael's marks draw their wrath." Kael stood, her slate trembling in her hands. "No," the slab warned us. "Danger, herd, spirit. If we'd marked the wolves' tracks, we could have been ready." Lear, his face grim, nodded. "She's right. I saw wolf tracks yesterday. If we'd marked them." The clan wavered. Torn between fear and reason, Torrin raised a hand. "Kael, mark the wolves' paths. Show us how your marks can guard us." Kael led Mira and Lear into the forest. Their slates ready, they found the wolves' tracks, scratching danger slashes and path lines to map their routes. Back at camp, Kael showed the clan, her voice firm. "These marks are our eyes. They see what we miss." The clan listened, their fear easing. Even Tarn, bandaged but alive, scratched a spear mark, vowing to hunt the wolves. But Sura's eyes burned, and Kael knew the shaman would not yield. The marks had saved them again, but the cost was rising, and the clan's heart was splitting. The clearing beneath the great tree pulsed with the rhythm of the stone hand clan's life. Fires crackling, children laughing, hunters sharpening spears. But the air was taut, like the hide of a drum stretched too tight. The wolf attack had left the clan shaken. Tarn's wound a stark reminder of the dangers lurking beyond the firelight. Kael's marks, etched on slates and now on the great tree's bark, had warned of the wolves, but the victory was bittersweet. Sura's accusations hung heavy. Her claim that the marks angered the spirits finding fertile ground in the clan's fear. Kael felt the weight of every glance, every whisper, as she sat by the ancient slab, her fingers tracing its weathered lines. The slab had become her anchor, its marks a bridge to a past she could only imagine. She had deciphered more of its sequences, a danger slash paired with a herd cluster, a spirit spiral beside a pathline. Each sequence felt like a whisper from the ancestors, urging her to keep going. Her learners, Mira, Lear, Erin, Tisa, and Kael, gathered around her daily, their slates filled with stories of the clan's journey. Even Torrin, his hands worn by years of leadership, had begun to carry a small slate, scratching a home circle to mark their camp. The marks were weaving into the clan's life, but Kael knew they stood on a knife's edge. One misstep, and Sura's warnings could unravel everything. Kael focused on the wolf's threat. She and her learners had mapped their tracks, scratching danger slashes and path lines on slates and stones around the clearing. She taught the clan to read these, showing how a slash near a path meant danger ahead. The hunters, even Vren's loyal followers, began to check the marked stones before venturing out, their skepticism softened by the wolves' retreat. But Sura's influence lingered. At every fire, she spoke of the spirit's anger, her beads clinking as she wove charms to appease them. Vren echoed her, his voice sharp. The marks didn't stop the wolves. He said one night, his spear glinting, they brought them. Kael stood, her slate in hand. "The marks warned us," she said. "Without them, more would be hurt. They're not a curse, they're our eyes, our..." Lear nodded, his arm around Tisa. "She's right. The marks saved my daughter once. They guarded us again." The clan wavered, their eyes flicking between Kael and Sura. Torrin's voice cut through the tension. "Kael, your marks have proven their worth, but Sura speaks for the spirits. Find a way to honor them, or the clan will fear your work." Kael nodded, her mind racing. She needed to bridge the gap between her marks and the clan's beliefs. That night, she sat with the ancient slab, searching for a sequence to guide her. She found one she hadn't fully understood, a spirit spiral, a clan cluster, a heart mark. It felt like a call to unity, a plea to bind the clan's heart with the spirit's will. She scratched it onto her slate, whispering, "Show me how." The next day, Kael gathered her learners by the great tree. "We'll make a new mark," she said, "one for the spirits and the clan together." She showed them a unity mark, a spirit spiral inside a heart trunk, its branches reaching out like arms. "This is us, with the ancestors. We'll mark it on the tree, on our slates, on the stones." The learners worked eagerly, their flints carving the unity mark into the tree's bark, its lines bold against the scarred wood. Taisa added her star, Kael his line, each mark a thread in the clan's story. Even Erin, practical and steady, scratched the unity mark with care, her eyes bright. "This feels right," she said, "like weaving a basket, but for our souls." Kael led the clan in a ritual, burning herbs as Sura did, offering the unity mark to the fire. "Spirits," she said, her voice clear, "we mark to honor you, to carry your wisdom, guide us." The clan watched, some joining the prayer, others silent. Sura stood apart, her face unreadable, but she did not interrupt. Kael felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the unity mark could soften the shaman's heart. But the forest was not done with them. The bison had vanished, their tracks swallowed by the plain's vastness. Hunger crept into the camp, the clan's stores dwindling. Vren's grumbles grew louder, his hunters restless. One evening, as the clan gathered, he stood, his voice booming. "The marks feed us nothing. The spirits have turned the herd away because we defy them with these scratches." Mira leapt to her feet, her slate raised. "The marks led us to the last hunt. They'll find the herd again if we trust them." Vren scoffed, "Trust? I trust my spear, not your stones." Before Kael could respond, a cry rang out. Kael, who had wandered near the forest's edge, stumbled back, his arm bleeding from a deep gash. "Cats," he gasped, "big cats." The clan surged into action. Spears raised, fires stoked. Kael grabbed her slate, her heart pounding. She had seen tracks near the clearing, wide paws, claw marks, too large for wolves. She hadn't marked them, fearing panic, but now she cursed her caution. She showed Torin her slate, scratching a danger, slash with a claw curve. "This is a great cat," she said. "We need to guard the camp, set traps." Torin nodded, his face grim. "Do it, Kael. Mark the paths, guide us." Kael and her learners worked through the night, marking stones with danger and claw to warn of the cat's range. They scratched path lines to map safe routes, avoiding the thickets where the beast might lurk. The hunters, even Vren, followed the marks, setting traps of sharpened stakes. By dawn, the camp was ringed with warnings, the clan's eyes sharp. But Sura seized the moment. At the fire, she raised her arms, her voice a chant. "The spirits send this beast because we mark what is theirs. Cast out the slab, the slates, or we will all perish." The clan's fear surged, their voices rising. Kael stood, her slate trembling. "The marks don't bring the cat, they warn us. Look." She held up a stone, its claw mark, stark. "This tells us where it hunts. Without it, we'd be blind." Leah backed her, his voice firm. "Kael's mark saved us from wolves. They'll save us now." Torin's eyes flicked between Kael and Sura. "Kael, prove it. Find the cat. Guide us to safety." Kael's stomach knotted. The claw mark was new, untested, but she had no choice. She led Mira and Leah into the forest, their slates ready. Following the cat's tracks, they marked each sign, scratched trees, torn earth with danger and claw, near a rocky outcrop. They found a fresh kill, a deer half eaten. Kael scratched a hunt sequence. Claw, herd, danger. "The cat hunts here," she said. "We can trap it." They returned to camp, showing Torin the marked stones. He called the hunters, and they set a trap at the outcrop. Using the deer's remains as bait, Kael's marks guided their steps, the path lines keeping them clear of the cat's range. At dusk, a roar shook the forest, followed by the snap of stakes. The hunters returned, dragging the great cat's body, its tawny hide pierced by spears. The clan erupted in cheers, their fear replaced by triumph. Kael's marks had led them true. Even Vren, his face tight, offered no protest. Torrin raised a hand, his voice steady. Kael's marks are our strength. They speak for us, for the spirits, they stay. Sura's eyes burned, but she said nothing. Kael knew the shaman's silence was not surrender. That night she sat with the ancient slab, finding a new sequence, a unity mark, a danger slash, a spirit spiral. It felt like a warning and a hope, a call to bind the clan against what was to come. She scratched it onto her slate, whispering, "Hold us together." The clan moved on, leaving the great tree behind, their slates heavy with marks. Kael taught them to mark the cat's defeat, a story of claw and spear. But as they trekked toward the plain, she felt Sura's gaze, sharp as ever. The marks had won a battle, but the war for the clan's heart was far from over. The plain stretched vast and golden under a sky heavy with the promise of autumn, its grasses whispering secrets to the wind. The Stonehand clan moved steadily across this open land, their shelters swaying on litters, their fires trailing smoke like threads to the stars. The great tree and its forest were behind them, but its memory lingered in the marks etched on their slates, heart trunks and unity spirals that bound them to that place. Kael walked at the clan's heart, the ancient slab strapped to her back, its weight now a part of her, like the marks that filled her mind. Her work had saved them from floods, storms, wolves, and the great cat. Yet the clan's unity remained fragile, stretched taut by Sura's unyielding opposition. The marks had become the clan's pulse. Mira, Lear, Erin, Tisa, and Kael carried slates, etched with stories of their journey. Path lines for trails, herd dots for hunts, danger slashes for threats overcome. Even the hunters, once skeptical, checked marked stones before venturing out, their spears guided by Kael's maps. Torrin, his face lined with the weight of leadership, scratched a home circle each night, a ritual that steadied the clan. But Sura's shadow loomed. Her chants at the fire grew fiercer, her warnings of angry spirits stirring fear in those who wavered. Vren, her staunchest ally, rallied his hunters, their whispers a constant challenge to Kael's work. Kael knew the clan stood at a crossroads. The marks had proven their worth, but they needed to be more than tools. They needed to be sacred, woven into the clan's soul as deeply as Sura's rituals. She spent her nights with the ancient slab, its sequences, a guide. She found a pattern she hadn't fully grasped, a unity mark, a spirit spiral, a cycle circle split into arcs. It felt like a story of endurance, of a people bound to the world through time. She scratched it onto her slate, naming it forever, a mark to hold the clan's past and future. One morning, as the clan camped by a shallow stream, Kael gathered her learners. "We need a new mark," she said, showing them forever. "This is for all of us, our ancestors, our children, the spirits. It says we endure, like the stars." Tisa's eyes widened. "Can we mark it everywhere? On stones, trees, the ground?" Kael smiled. "Yes, Tisa, let's make it so no one forgets." The learners worked eagerly, scratching forever onto slates, stones, and the stream's bank. Mira suggested marking a boulder near the camp, a monument to the clan's journey. Kael agreed, and the learners carved forever with clan lines and spirit spirals. Their flints singing against the stone, the clan watched. Some joining, others hesitant. Erin, her weaver's hands steady, added a cycle arc, whispering, "For my kin, past and yet to come." But Sura's voice broke the moment. "You defile the earth," she cried, her beads clinking as she strode forward. "These marks mock the spirits. They will bring ruin." Mira stood, her slate raised. "The marks save us. They're the spirit's gift, not a curse." Vren's hunters tightened their grips on their spears, their eyes on Sura. The clan's murmurs grew, fear and anger clashing. Kael stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Sura, the marks honor the spirits, the slab, the stones in the valley. They're from our ancestors. They teach us to remember, to survive. Sura's eyes blazed. You claim their voice, child? I am the shaman. The spirits speak through me, not your stones. Torin raised a hand, his face grave. Enough, Kael, Sura, this divides us. We cannot endure as two hearts. Kael, show us your marks are sacred. Sura, guide us to the spirit's will. Kael's stomach knotted. She knew this was her final test. She turned to the boulder, her flint in hand. I'll mark our story, she said. All of it. Our hunts, our dangers, our spirits. If it speaks true, let it bind us. The clan gathered, their eyes fixed on the boulder. Kael worked through the day, her learners beside her. She carved the clan's journey, home for their camps, path for their trails, herd for their hunts, danger for their trials, spirit for their ancestors, forever for their endurance. Each mark was a prayer, a plea for unity. She burned herbs, as Sura did, offering the unity mark to the smoke. Tisa added her star, Kael his line, Lear his spear, even Torin scratched a home, his hand trembling. Sura watched, her silence sharp. As dusk fell, she stepped forward, her voice low. You weave a story, Kael, but it is not yours to tell. The spirits will judge. That night, the clan slept uneasily, the boulder's marks glowing in the firelight. Kael stayed awake, her slate in hand, whispering to the ancient slab. Let them see, she said, let them believe. At dawn, a cry woke the camp. The stream had swollen, its waters lapping at the shelters. The clan scrambled to higher ground, their eyes wide with fear. Sura raised her arms, chanting, the spirits punish us, the marks have brought this. But Mira pointed to the boulder, its marks untouched by the water. Look, the forever mark stands, the spirits protect it. Kael's heart leapt. She showed Torin her slate, where she had scratched a water sequence, with a danger slash the day before. I saw the streams rise, she said. The marks warned us, if we'd moved sooner. Torin's face hardened. He turned to the clan, his voice ringing. Kael's marks speak true. They warn us, guide us, hold us. They are ours, as the spirits are ours. The clan's fear wavered, their eyes on the boulder. Lear spoke, his voice firm. The marks saved my Tisa, my clan. They're no curse. Erin nodded, her cycle mark gleaming. They weave us together. I trust them. Even Vren's hunters hesitated, their spears lowered. Sura's face twisted, but before she could speak, Torin turned to her. Sura, you guide our spirits. Kael guides our marks. Together, you are our strength. Will you honor this? Sura's eyes flicked to the boulder, then to Kael. The clan held its breath. Slowly, she knelt, her fingers tracing the spirit spiral. If the marks serve the spirits, she said, her voice low, I will not oppose them, but I will watch and Kael, always. Kael exhaled, her relief tempered by caution. Sura's truce was fragile, but it was enough. The clan cheered, their voices rising like a river. They moved their camp to higher ground, guided by Kael's path marks, their slates heavy with new stories. As seasons turned, the marks spread. Kael taught the clan to mark their lives, births with star dots, deaths with spirit spirals, hunts with spear lines. They left forever marks on stones across the plain, a trail for those who would follow. Mira became Kael's voice, teaching new learners as the clan grew. Tessa, now older, carved star marks with pride, her laughter echoing. Even Sura, though wary, added spirit marks to the clan's stones, her chants blending with Kael's lessons. One evening, as the clan camped beneath a sky ablaze with stars, Kael sat with the ancient slab, its marks worn but alive. She scratched a final sequence. Forever, clan, spirit. She placed the slab by a great stone, marking it with heart. Stay, she whispered. Not to the stone, but to the world. Years later, when Kael's hair was white and her hands trembled, she stood by that stone. The clan's children gathered around her. They carried slates etched with stories she had taught, their marks a language that bound them to the past. The stone hand endured, their fires burning bright, their voices carrying the marks to the stars. And far beyond, in valleys and plains yet to be walked, the forever marks waited, etched in stone, whispering to those who would listen.